from my Saudi sisters. We're doing kitesurf retreats for women, focusing on female empowerment. Yeah, and we're lucky we're gonna have our first retreat in South Africa starting tonight. We had this idea about this whole event last year, like a long time ago, very long time ago. We were thinking, what could we do? How we want to do it? We just wanted to do something to get people together, to share, to connect, and to support each other. A networking event about a very, very important topic. And we were thinking, okay, it's just the two of us, we need a good team. And we found this lovely lady here, Rose, who actually joined one of our retreats some years ago. And then back here, Miriam, she's an awesome photographer, working in the industry now for how long, Miriam?
3 years.
For 3 years, and she's now also our tech girl. She's trying to make the microphones work. Yes, so we had this whole idea, and with the help of the two of them, we created this. And actually, we're very happy that we have this awesome space here that Rose created, and it's also one of the reasons why I thought it's the perfect environment and setting for this event, because it's a female-owned, business.
Only female-run business.
Only female-run
Or
business.
do everything with females.
Yes.
This household. Yeah.
And yes, I think so too. So Rose, you want to say some words?
Yes. First of all, welcome everybody. I'm very happy to share my house, my home with all of you today. Feel free to have a walk around if you're interested, or ask me or ask one of my staff to show you around. So for those who don't know me, I'm Rose. Officially my full name that my parents gave me is Rosemary. Nobody knows me like that. But I go under the name Rosie in Cape Town because of my business at Rosie's. I created this space for travelers to come together in 2015. This has been my dream since I was a little girl. So going back to the little girl, it started all, my parents are here. It's really important for me that they're here today. I don't know if you guys, when you go to dress up parties and things as kids, everybody dresses up as whatever the girls usually princesses and the guys policemen and so on. I wanted a little apron and serving tray, because I was wanting to serve people and be a hotel owner. So my destination was the hotel school, which I did in the Netherlands eventually when we moved back from South Africa. To go back to the place that is home to me, which is Cape Town, South Africa, and the village that I have such fond childhood memories of, which is Lauberg. And this all I realized in 2015 when I decided to come back and realize a place to bring people together. This was my main goal. I wrote my first business plan for this when I was 15 years old. I wanted a financial advisor to already help me to set up something at the age of 15. Totally ridiculous, but I found all of that and all the cuttings that I cut out from magazines on how I wanted the interior to look and how many beds I needed and how many tables. I kept that, and I found it in my attic in 2015 when I decided to move back and realize this dream. Could have never done this without my parents. Thank you so much. And I never knew I was going to come into a kite scene, because I didn't even know what kiting was back then. I'm sorry. And it just happened, and kiters started arriving, and they're the best crowd. And I'm so happy that I am now part of this amazing community, because that's what we are. And we bump into each other all over the world. We always have mutual interests, and it's so beautiful that we're putting all of that together today. Thank you so much for being part of that. We've got my friend Rory of Black Sheep Coffee at the back. Have a lovely day, guys. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes. And now, our magic glue.
Our magic glue.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's okay.
Thank you to these ladies for organising this, and thank you to Rosie for hosting this, and Miriam at the back there. She's been at the back doing a lot of work on the side and getting things organised. So thank you very much, Miriam. And we'll be hearing from her later. because she's always behind the scenes. She's behind the lens in kiteboarding. For the last 3 years, we've all seen images taken by Miriam and probably not known it was her. And that's the one thing with women's kiteboarding is there are a lot of women in the industry, in the front, on the service side, and also at the back. So thank you ladies for having us, and yeah.
The stage is yours.
Yes. Yes.
So we're going to start talking about women in the industry that are behind the scenes. There are actually women in the product side, in the marketing, there are athletes. Kiteboarding, a lot of the time we don't see what happens at the back, and most of the time it's because the person telling the story about what's happening in kiteboarding is a woman. And so I'd like to invite our first 3 guests up. We've got Ines, who was in marketing for the Fly Surfer and for Cabrino over the years. She's been in kiteboarding. Come on up, Ines.
Yay!
She learned to kiteboard, 11 years ago?
Yes.
And she's been working in the industry for
7 years.
7 years. So, and behind the scenes. So she's one of the ladies who's been writing about it. And then our next guest up is Julia, who's one of the newer additions. She's in the product side of things. So she's been an intern, Julia. She's been an intern for a couple of brands. And at the moment she's working for Ion, and she's got a fantastic project she's working on, which she's going to tell us a little bit about, and that's a woman's specific harness. So welcome on board, Julia. How long have you been kiting?
7 years, a little bit longer.
Yeah, and you studied product design? Or?
I studied bioengineering.
Okay, so there's going to be lots of been kitesurfing since the noughties, and she's and she got into kiting around about the time that GUST magazine started. So GUST was a South African magazine, and it was internationally renowned, especially for us women globally, because if you wanted to know anything about what was happening for women in kiteboarding, you try and get your hands on a GUST magazine because it was covered. And so that was in 2006.
Yeah.
2006.
To about 2010. Yeah.
So for those years, late years in the noughties, it was thanks to Janet that there was things happening around kitesurfing. So from these 3 ladies, thank you very much for joining us. We're going to have a conversation about kitesurfing as we see it from the back, and how it's portrayed to the media, to the people in the front, and how often we do the talking, but we don't include ourselves in the story. I've got a couple of questions here that the Salty Girls have prepared for us to cover, and like there's statements in the industry over the years, like when girls talk to girls, they say, come join us for a session, but nobody actually ever makes the time to do so. But sometimes when girls talk to girls as well, they might go the other perspective and they go, don't be such a girl. And it's like, okay, what do those words mean, to not be such a girl? Maybe we're saying it in the incorrect way. So these are the things that we need to discuss. And the next thing is equality in kiteboarding. How have we seen it from our side through the years? I've also been in the industry for 20 years. Do we think we've got the same opportunities as women in kiteboarding, or should there be more opportunities for kiteboarding? Okay, so I'm going to open the discussion with Ines. Let me stand back here. So, Ines, tell us just like in 3 short sentences, like how do you see women in kite?
So from my experience throughout the past 7 years, can you hear me guys?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, obviously it's such a versatile sport, and so are we as women and men both equally. The cool thing about it is that you can basically do or practice every discipline, and I think sometimes girls or women are kind of underestimating themselves, like not being like not really having,
They're not putting themselves
yes,
out there.
exactly, even though they could, you know. So I think
Das ist das
that's one
Speaker,
thing.
weißt du? Das funktioniert alles.
Something which is changing. Also with new disciplines coming in where women are competing, which is a really great thing.
So, do you think that being a woman in the product side of things, will that enable more women, like more women's focused product, which will enable more women to get into the sport or to increase their confidence in any way?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, basically in the past years, it's been just men developing all the products and focusing on men, and it's fine because the main market was just men, but it's been growing, and I think now with also me trying to get like the harnesses to a way that we don't have like pain after like 3 days of kiting, and trying not to like get the harness back on because it's like pressing on all the ribs and everything. So I hope to make like a product so that we're also comfortable in pushing our limits and like getting ourselves in the water as long as possible as a man as well. Like, I mean, if we have pain with the harness after like what 2 hours of riding, then we cannot push ourselves too much. So I think it gets ourselves a little bit more in comfortable direction, and I hope to make that happen.
Okay, so that ties in with what Ines was saying, that if you provide the product and you can build the confidence in the woman, and then if the woman's more confident, she might put herself out there more. Is that something that you think? Yeah. So, I mean, Janet, you saw it in the early days where, I mean, equipment was challenging, but you did have a good crew of women early on, and you covered them in your magazine. And so, how, like through the years, how do you think the women in the sport have changed? Not necessarily equipment that fits correctly.
Yeah, or you wouldn't have the
A kite that's small enough.
yeah, or even how to choose it. So you might have the right stuff out there, but somebody to guide you to say, let's go figure this out together. And who better to guide you than a fellow female? And so they're creating it with whatever they're doing here at Rosie's or wherever they're doing their retreat, so that it's all encompassing. It's not like, here are your lessons, okay, cheers. You know, it's like we're part of this together. We're going to hold your hand right from the beginning to the end to ensure that people stay in the sport, they don't get injured. Because that can also be a big deterrent. Once you've had your lesson, now you're learning, you get injured and you'll never go back to it. It's like, so that happens, that's common. I don't know, have I answered your question?
Yeah,
Have
that's,
I? Okay.
yeah. Okay, so we've when Janet learnt, and there was a bit of a kiting crew with women helping women, and we've seen the community grow over the years, and now from the product side, Julia, what inspired you to get involved with kitesurfing product, and was it always a dream to do more stuff for women when you looked at it?
Honestly, it was a little bit of a situation that I went to biomedical engineering because I wanted to do medical products, and then I did an internship in Cape Town, and I didn't really feel that I had the passion to do it, and I didn't feel like I really wanted to do it for the next few years, and a friend suggested I should go into kitesurfing development because, well, I'm really passionate about kitesurfing and I'm, well, an engineer, so that basically brought me to the kitesurfing development. And when I started with duotone as a student, I really had like great products. I was working on the click bar, some new stuff to do for my bachelor thesis. And then after my bachelor thesis, I started with iron, and I really was looking forward to it because I've had so many friends, female friends, who had problems with their harnesses. I myself as well have like had so many problems. It was so tough to get any harnesses to have a good session with and not have any pain. And I've had experience with my friends that they also struggled with it. So that was basically the first thing I said to my boss. I was like, this is what I want to do. And this is one of my first projects that I started. And this is like, yeah, very passionate about this because I hope that I can like help a lot of female riders to like push the limits.
Fantastic. Within the industry, like the number of women that you've seen within the industry and opportunities for women within kiteboarding on the inside, have you seen that, and are there more women around than what most of us think there are?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's also now lots of, especially during the last 2 years, I think I've seen like most of women, like lots of my friends also came in who were actually not really related to any water sports, because also as the products became better and safer, I think there's not really a bad product or a bad kite out there at the moment, generally. So it's really also easy because the products just really offer an easy way for women and for everybody to enter the sport.
And the future of women in kiteboarding from an athletic side and marketing communication side, do you think, I mean, the current status quo is going to stay the same, or do you think it's going to develop in a different direction?
Well, I think there's the possibility is like really endless, because obviously there's still like, I think in general like 25% women out there only, and 75% of men. So I think we really have to stand up for each other and to really find ways to access the kite sports as easy as possible. And I think with, for example, my Salty Sisters as an event format for girls to join, it's just a perfect way as well. And in terms of athletes,
Showing athletes in the future, do you think the way that we portray the female kiter, there's room for that to change from a marketing perspective?
yes, hopefully.
These are hard questions.
Yeah, it's really.
It's like, yeah, because we don't talk about it within the industry, and some of us really don't care because we look at the athletes around us and we go, she kicks ass, and that's great. But it's someone who works in the industry. I mean, I'm sorry, your salary gets paid by a brand, so you got to toe the line. But it's a question worth asking, and we'll ask the athletes later as well.
There's a hand coming up.
It looks like Monique's got a question there.
Yeah.
No, I do. I wanted to go for the ladies who have been in the industry in product development. And have you guys found it easier nowadays to actually push
can adapt this question to exactly every department, not only product department.
Yeah, marketing. And for Janet,
Yeah.
did you find that when telling the stories, even back in the day, that you had challenges putting the woman, like putting the ladies' stories up front?
Yeah, but I mean, that was the main reason I got involved with GUST. It was purely a spontaneous conversation to the editor. At the time I was kite surfing. I actually hadn't yet met Terri or any of the other girls that were kite surfing, but I was riding, staying upwind, so I could considered myself a competent kite surfer. And I bought the second issue of GUST magazine, and on the cover was a picture of Breathwork in like a Pro Limit silver speed suit, and it had a bright pink logo, and I was like, wow, what a cool magazine. Like, I'm this newbie to kite surfing, and I bought it at Exclusive Books. And like, as soon as I opened the front page, my excitement just kind of dissipated, because I paged through one page at a time, and I was like expecting to see these inspiring, amazing action shots of this girl who I didn't know at the time, Sophia, inside the magazine. And all I was presented with were these scantily clad bikini girls standing in knee-deep water, holding boards titled like a board review. And I was like, my first thing was like, can this girl even kite, And I was like, this is not cool. And I phoned the editor. On his cell phone number was there at the beginning. And I was like, listen here, like a very nice magazine, but like I'm reading this magazine to be inspired. Where are the girls like me? I don't see them in the magazine. And he was like, geez, obviously you're quite passionate about this. And I was like, it wasn't a criticism. But I was hired as the editor, and 3 months later I actually bought the magazine, and it was my business for 4 years. So I published that and went on to found GUST Girls with Terri, and we hosted many kite surfing events like the Jim Beam Extreme. And every year at the Downwind Dash we would have at least, how many, Terri? Like 15, 20 girls at the start line, purely let's do this, like we're doing this together, not like I'm racing you to Saldanha. I'm like, we are all getting to Saldanha, and that with that philosophy, there were more girls that felt comfortable to participate. I'm talking about amateurs, I guess I can't speak for the professionals. Well, Terry's semi-professional. But have I answered your question? Yeah. And to be honest, I'm a bit out of touch
and so
now.
Because you owned the...
Correct. We changed the content of the magazine very much so, and created the girls' things, and that changed the face of... in contrast to our competitors at
which
the time.
is great.
Yeah.
And that was a conversation that we had before, was it's not about a competition, it's about getting ahead as a group of women within the industry as well. Hey, Ines, because that was a conversation we had before we started this. So supporting each other, even within the industry, is a very solid theme.
Yeah.
Have you, as ladies in the industry, like in your respective brands, Julia, have you had good support from the guys and the girls around you? And is there like the opportunity to get internships as a woman? Do they seem to be open and easy?
Yeah, so I think it's they're quite open-minded. I think there's still a little bit of a not knowing what to do with the females in the industry, to be honest. Like, I feel like I have a very, not aggressive way, but I am very forward-speaking. I'm very direct, and if I want something, I usually go and get it. So it's, I think it's quite necessary in the kite industry to do that, because otherwise, a lot of times the ideas will just kind of sink through and not being taken seriously. So if you do want to do something, you go and do it. And as long as there are more women coming into the industry doing the same thing, then I think we can push it a little bit more, and we can start like getting more focus on the women as well.
Yeah, definitely. You have to go after it, because I heard so many times in the beginning, like, no, we never did it like this, and it has to go this way. And I was usually like, but why? Can't we just, find a different approach, how to position a certain product? It doesn't always have to be about an athlete, obviously, but it's also, obviously I was in charge of launching products, and yeah, you definitely, there's for sure people who support you, but obviously sometimes it's a little bit hard as well. It can be hard, but I think it's getting better and better.
Yeah.
The guys are also more open.
And how can the general rider and the athletes influence the brands more? The female riders, or even the guy riders, how can they influence the brands more to deliver more appropriate things for the general ladies out there, kiting ladies out there? Who's got an answer for me? Janet? Do you think there's anything that, as an older lady and like who's been kiting for many years, is there anything that any brand that's delivered anything recently that makes you go, wow, I wish I was a young lady and that I was getting into this sport now?
Sure, I must confess, like just off the top of my head, I've been kind of out of it. I mean, the kite surfing that I've been doing has just been with friends. Like I've stayed completely off the radar for a while. So I think.
So you've been in the industry and you've come out of it. So now what the brands do is what they do somewhere else, and you focus on your own thing.
Yeah, I'm a mom as well, and I've got a 3-year-old son. So
you're juggling things.
Yeah,
as well.
my focus is quite different. So I can't actually comment. I must be honest. I'm not really sure with what's happening out there. But I mean, I think that what you've created today is, you know, a huge positive. It's not something that I've been exposed to in a long time. So different things are obviously changing. Yeah, I don't know if I've answered your question, but I don't think I'm the best to answer that one. Maybe they're more informed at the moment with the campaigns of the different brands and.
But that's part of the reason I asked you. Is like, was because you slightly removed.
Away, okay.
Is there anything that can be done to possibly reach the older kiters, the previous kiters, more women of our age or older? To get them into the sport, is there anything that could be done, do you think?
Yeah, I think with technology now, I think there's definitely room for, with WhatsApp, I mean, there's room for even just a buddy system. I mean, often I like say if there is not available, I'll go kiting on my own at Dolphin Beach, it's fine, but also just some sort of a female buddy system, kite surfing, just to say, hey girls, I'm going in the water at Dolphin Beach, the conditions are great. Some sort of feed, we are also bombarded with a lot of information at the moment. Maybe some kind of feed that you can tap into, like somebody, or say I'm rigging up at, Easterstein, or we're going to be doing a downwinder from Big Bay at 11. Who's in? Oh, by the way, we have a vehicle, or something like that. Could
community based.
I think there's a lot of room for that. We do it informally, but I think that there's actually a lot of room for that on a larger scale. And maybe a little bit more support in terms of the downwinders. I mean, I know Brad had his shuttle and whatever, and that came and went, but something like that, in principle, is a very good idea. Maybe something that they could do in collaboration with the guest house. So there's transport that's safe, and I think there's a lot
various
of
locations. There are definitely that community-based stuff, which is something that the brands could tap into.
Yeah.
And I know, Julia, when you started working on your product, you reached out to all the ladies out there.
Try to.
Did you get a response from the females in the community about the product?
A little bit, a few, yes, but not a lot, to be honest. I was hoping for a little bit more, but I'm not sure why it was. I did get a lot of data. Like I was looking for data about like body measurements, so I can have some data to base my harness on. And I think I only got like around 70 answers. And it is still like something I can work with. It's just not as much as I hoped for. And a lot of female communities also didn't answer to my emails either. So I'm not sure.
So that's a bit interesting because women often say that the brands don't take them into consideration, but yet when they get given the opportunity, they don't necessarily put themselves out there. So
Yes.
it is a two-way street, I
Honestly,
guess.
I have also had some experience with some of the team riders who are not responding to any emails at all. So they always like say, okay, I would like to be more involved. I would like to have this and that. And then like when you actually try to reach out, it's like nothing.
Yes. Not so much coming back, yeah.
It's not a lot coming back, and I feel like if there would be more interaction, communication, it probably would bring the
So-
brands to get a lot. Like,
So
more
if any
further.
of you out there have anything that you want from a woman's product perspective or anything like that, reach out to the brands, because they don't get the feedback that they always want to, do they?
Well, for example, we obviously get feedback from the athletes as a brand. However, there's also other people like opinion leaders from a beach or kite schools where we give the products to for long-term or short-term tests. So I wouldn't always count on only the feedback from the riders themselves.
Yeah.
So generally, you would receive more feedback, like literally from a sales account, for example.
Yeah.
I think this could be
Yeah.
one advantage of it, or one other a different way to reach out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, in general, looking at the demographic of the women, like have you done surveys when you were in the marketing, women versus men, that the brands that you were involved in, was there a understanding of the number of women in kite surfing versus the number of men?
I mean, you can see it from the social media analytics, basically. So in the beginning, when I basically took over the Fly Surfer social media, we had about like 11% of women following the brand, because it was in the beginning it was a very technical brand as well, so which was mainly focusing on foil kites, race products, and a lot of people, I would say, have a bit of fear, maybe not fear, but it's, for the most people, it's easier to kind of get into riding tube kites, because there's not many schools who are actually teaching on foil kites. Long story short, that definitely increased when I kind of put the marketing focus as well on women, and to really encourage them, did more Q&As, takeovers of the riders through the social channels, and to give them a platform as well.
Okay.
So this definitely changed, and now I think the ratio is about 23 to,
So 25% of the women users out
which
there
kind of reflects as well.
Yeah. On the beach as well.
Yeah,
in
on the
most
beach,
locations.
yeah.
Yeah. So thank you very much, ladies. We're going to start the next section, and what we've got here is passionate athletes and pro athletes. We've got three stunning guests across the range of kiters. First guest I'm going to call up is Kevin. Kevin is the co-owner of Reedin Kites, but he's also been in the kite industry since he was really young. And he's got experience globally on all levels. So welcome, Kevin. Thank you for joining us. Grab that one.
Hello, everyone.
Is that one working?
I think so. Yeah, sounds like it.
So Kevin is also kind of an industry insider rather than just a pro passionate athlete. And from that perspective, before this event, I got an interesting question, and it was about naming product. And for those of us in the industry, we all have issues about what we're going to call it, and there's so many products called Apex kites, and Apex bar and Apex board. And with Reedin, when you started Reedin, how did you come up with the name Supermodel for your kite? I mean, can be seen as a sexy lady, or it could be seen as a fast car, or what was the decision behind that?
Well, when Damien and I started Reedin, we wanted to do something unique. You know, finally we had the time and the opportunity to not be limited by anything. So we were like, when Damien started working on the supermodel, he started working and he wanted to make, you know, the best kite out there, of course. And for his working fell, he called it the supermodel, because he wanted to make that ultimate thing, that ultimate kite. And then he started working on it, and then it became so good. He was like, that name just stuck. And then he was like, hey dude, what do you think about calling the kite the supermodel? You know, like having, you know,
So it
the
had
best
nothing
kite
to
out
do
there.
with sexy girls.
Well, it's just how you interpret that word, you know, like depends how your brain is programmed. You can think about it multiple ways, but we thought it was a very catchy name and it suited really well to the product we wanted to make. And that's how the kite name started. And you know, it's definitely a name, if you hear it once, you're not going to forget it. So it works.
It did work, definitely, because we do remember it's called a supermodel. So that was just a question on the industry insider side. But we've got Kevin up here as an athlete, and I'm going to bring up the next two athletes. So Kevin's our guy representative on the athlete side, so you're welcome to grab a seat. And next, I'm going to bring along a lady who was one of the first female kiters, if not the first female kiter in South Africa. She's been kiting for 20 years, and when she learnt, it was really hard work and challenging to get into the sport, not only as a woman, but as a person in general. So Terri Kidson, her Insta name is Kite Kid. On Instagram, and I think that's because she's really an enthusiastic kiter. So welcome, Terri.
I must just tell you, the last time I was on a stage with Kevin was at the Jim Beam Extreme in the Strand, and he was like, that was in 2009, and I actually won that. I was very proud. There were only 3 women taking part, but it doesn't matter, you know. So yeah, that's the last time. Kevin also won. That's why I was with him on the stage. Yeah. Thanks.
Perspective as a woman in kiteboarding, having seen it all, and as an athlete and just a participant and passionate kiter is valuable to all of us, so that we can be reminded of how far we've come over the years. So I first want to ask you, how did you get into kiteboarding, and was it very challenging because you were a woman, or was it just...
I think it was, yes, I suppose it could be as a woman. I mean, you know the story. The first time, there were no kite shops. There was just a container on the beach, and sun tracks, actually. And I actually went to the container and said, look, do you guys do lessons or something like that? This is like not an urban legend. This actually happened to me. And the guy said, oh, no, this is an extreme sport. We're not going to teach women, and I come from a marketing background, so I said to him, well, good luck with that. Really, good luck with that, seeing that half the world is women, so good luck with that strategy. And then I went to Suntracks, and Brian said to me, phone this one guy, he'll teach you. My first kite, I had one lesson on the beach, went to buy, totally addicted, went to buy the kit. My first kite was a 2-line Nash, I will never forget it, and a directional. There were no wakeboards, no sort of directionals. I mean, twin tips. So it was a directional that looked like a windsurf board. I had a 2-line, and my mom was my kite bitch, actually, because there was nobody that could take me. And she was with me at Langeree for one day, and she said, that's it, I don't want to see you die. And subsequently, about 2 weeks later, I converted that 1-line to a 4-line. But girls, these had no depower. I don't know if you remember the AR. It had no depower. You could not depower. If you were in a power zone, that kite pulled you what we used to call death running until you crashed. And that was where... And I remember, you remember Brad? Brad used to death run down Langeree, and you just got out of the way. It was like, you know... And when you were coming into the beach, you would like wave at people, help, 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 catch the kite. That was it. But... it's 20 years later. I'm still addicted. I still am trying to hit the beach. I still want to get out every day when I can. I absolutely love the sport. And yeah, I have friends who are girls. One thing I do want to say though, and I think it's important, although there were no women and there was no equipment for women, I did perceive an equality in the sport with the guys I was kiting with, in that I wasn't seen as a woman kiting, I was seen as a kite surfer. And my opinion was important, and the respect that you had in the group of guys that we were kiting with was always there. It's one of the most important things I perceived when I started kiting, they didn't say, oh, you a girl, sit on the beach or do whatever. I was a kite surfer, period. And I think that's something that, was important for me. And then obviously we started, Janet and I and Caroline, all we started kiting. But it is something I did not perceive an inequality among other kite surfers.
Which is fabulous.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, that's a theme through the day. The speakers we have, it's not that they've always gone out and been a kiter or been involved in the kiting and done what they want to do because it's kite surfing, and it's not necessarily because they're a girl or a guy or whatever it may be. So that's really awesome. And then our third athlete joining us today is Alessa, and she's been competing for a couple of years on the Big Air Kite League. So welcome, Alessa, to the stage.
Thank you very much.
So you started kiteboarding competitions in the freestyle scene, am I right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And but you're now pursuing Big Air.
Yes, so I had to make a decision to either freestyle or Big Air, and for me, Big Air is a lot more exciting in terms of competing, in terms of progression, because it is to overcome fear, and yeah, I think that was towards my decision that held me towards taking this decision. I still do freestyle, and for me it's the most fun to do. Like, I still love it, but yeah.
And
also,
do you think that the Big Air discipline caters more to female athletes, and for females to be able to raise their ability closer to that of the guys? Or how do you, like the future of females in kiteboarding from an athlete perspective, do you think you can get up there and like Terri, see yourself on an equal standing with the guys maybe going forward?
I see the possibility much more in Big Air than in freestyle, because Big Air is, like I said, just this constant fight with your own fear, but not that much of a physical difference for men and women. And I would really love to see that women climb up that stage and get closer towards the level of men, because I think just men have been pushing the sports in Big Air for years. I mean, sitting next to one of them right here. So this is what I really would like to see, Big Air growing. And I think right now we are at this moment of change where everything can be possible, and I'm really happy to be part of just the beginning of women pushing the sports to another level.
And one more question for you. Within the competitive scene as a girl in the Big Air, do you find that there's a camaraderie between the women, or is there different, like, is the competition really cutthroat? If there was a lady here who wanted to get into kiting competition, do you recommend it, or do you say, hey, you've got to have a really thick skin?
No, absolutely. I recommend for everyone to compete, no matter what level. I started last 2 years ago, my first Big Air Kite League here in Cape Town, and I did not know what a kite loop is. Like, I did a board off, I think, and a jump probably. And it still like pushed me after the competition even more to get better and to do kite loops, and just to push the level. And also what I really admire in Big Air kite surfing right now is that big community. It's not a competition in between us at all. It's more like we all fight for the same thing. We push the sports to another level. And like 2 girls are right here, Greta and Alison. Like we've been traveling together. We climbed up from reserves to compete, and like it's such a stoke to see you guys here, to see you in every competition, traveling the world together, and like we really became close friends and not competitors at all. Like we really empower each other. I'm so stoked when I see them shredding. Like they've climbed up so quickly, and
A very supportive environment.
Super
where the girls are
supportive.
pushing each other to get better.
And I think that's the reason why I think in the last year, big air and female competition has grown a lot, and like I think we are all the reason for it. We empower each other and not put each other down, and this is big air for me.
That's fantastic. That's the core of the discipline, that there's that opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Kevin, now, I should have actually introduced Kevin as Yalu's brother. Because for years, Yalu was also always introduced as Kevin's sister. So now Yalu's brother Kevin here.
I like it.
He's had some insights into women's kiteboarding through the years, and
Just a little bit, yeah.
and from your perspective, like not just having your sister being a kiteboarder, but the women's kiteboarding scene over how many years have you been in it?
24, 3 years?
23 years.
Yeah.
How,
Since the beginning.
yeah,
basically.
how have you seen changes, not only in the competition scene, but the vibe on the beach and all of that?
Well, when I started kiting, it was you'd show up on the beach and there would be 2 other kiters, and you'd be like, "Oh, it's a busy day on the beach," you know. And nowadays there's like, 2,000 kiters. It's like it's insane. But the beauty of that is that I grew up with my sister. She started kiting 2 years after I started, and she was definitely one of the first female kiters. And we started competing together, and fairly quickly I could notice of Yalu that she got frustrated with less prize money, less attention, recognition, that kind of stuff. And she's been fighting really hard for it, be like, hey, wait a minute, there are a lot of female kiters here, and there is that part of the sport is growing. And I think Yalu is definitely one of the key persons, I think, in this whole movement of getting more recognition for female kiters. And there's more girls like that, like Bruna and a couple girls here are, and everyone is on the end doing it together as well, which is really inspiring to see. And I'm very, very curious to see what you girls come up to for the future. I'm very excited. I'm very excited to hear your story, that the girls are getting more into big air kiting, and some girls are going pretty flipping high already, and this is just the beginning, and I feel like having things like this is really important for this, not only for the sport but also for how
Kitesurfing industry as a whole, to keep it healthy and the longevity of it.
Yeah, we're all doing it together, and it's not necessarily a gender should hold you back in what you want to become, either individually or as a group. And I think nowadays we live in quite a beautiful, open-minded time where anything is possible. Nowadays you can, if you have all the tools in hand to get to where you want to go. And I think if this would be like 30, 40, 50 years ago, it might have been very, very different. So I think, we're in a beautiful time where anything is possible. And I can't wait to see what happens.
If there's a young girl out here, or even not so young, and they wanted to get support for their riding, so sponsorship as an athlete, what do you think are the main attributes that they should push? Is it their feminine side? Is it their athleticism? Is
I
it?
think it's you as a person, and I don't think that should be linked to any gender. Whether you are, I don't care what you are, who you are. I think as long as you're having fun in that water and that can resonate to other people, I think that is very valuable to me. And it doesn't matter what race you are, what gender you are, what religion you have, whatever. Like, as long as I see a person underwater with a big smile, you're a winner for me, you know? Like, I think that's, it's not necessarily measuring with who can jump the highest or who can do the craziest trick. I think that is a certain part of the sport, but the other part is way bigger.
Totally. Now, looking at the three of you sitting here, there's age difference, there's body size difference. Now, this is going back a little bit more to your brand. How do you think brands can cater for athletes, for the diversity of athletes going forward, and accept that there is quite a diversity in the participants in our sport? Is there anything specific that brands can do to open things up, and from the marketing, athletics, sales side of things?
It's a very good point, but I think I will answer sort of the same thing as I just did. You know, I don't really care what gender you are. Like, it's just the individual person. You know, if you are a cool person and you're willing to work really hard and you're willing to, you know, take all the risks out there in strong winds and show what you can do as a person, I think that's, in my opinion, and now also having, you know, a brand and being able to support certain riders, that's what I'm looking for. That's where I get inspired of. And then the level doesn't really matter. Like, if I get inspired by people that maybe just started kiting and they do their first jump and the stoke they get on their face, I'm like, wow, you know, I get very inspired by that. And I get inspired by young people like Sera, you know, she's one of our Grom team riders. We just signed her to be part of the Grom team, and you know, I see some of her clips and it puts a huge smile on my face, you know. I'm like, wow, the amount of energy she has and the amount of, you know, stoke she gets from kiting. Yeah, I get a lot of energy out of that, and now being in a position where I'm able to
give back,
support, you know, and that feels great to me. For me, that's a huge win.
Yeah. And as an athlete, when you were younger, did you have that kind of support around you?
Not really. Well, I had my parents. They're here as well. They're in the back. They always supported me, believed in me from pretty much day one. And of course, I had sponsors, but those are just a couple tools that can help you, you know,
get into it and
getting into it.
But at the end of the day, it's the work that you do.
It's 95% of the work you got to put in it yourself. You got to work hard, you know. It's not going to come easy. You're going to get beaten down. You're going to have people tell you shit and then tell you, oh, you can't do it. Or and it doesn't matter if you're a boy or a girl, you know. It's like, I've had people tell me, like, oh, you can never become a professional kiter. I was like, you know what? Fuck you. I think I can. And then there's people that told me you can't start your own brand. It's going to be too complicated.
And
it's
you
like,
did.
Fuck you, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And I think if you have that mindset and if you start really believing in yourself and visualizing where you want to go, don't get held back to what people say. Let them talk. Whatever. If you believe that you can do something, you can do it. But you got to work hard and don't stop by the first you know, obstacle, because you're gonna get multiple obstacles and pretty shitty obstacles too. But as long as you can, overcome those, I think sky's the limit.
Excellent. I think later in the day we're going to be talking about mind and body, and that health side of things as well. So the training that athletes get. So Alessa, I mean, there's been times in your career, I think you've been told that you can't as well. Just quick summary, as a woman, do you think that affected you more than what it would a guy, or did you just work through it your own way and go, stuff it, I can do this, and go ahead and do it anyways?
So there's definitely been times, and I wouldn't say only once. Also, just recently, I've been through a stage where I realized, for example, coming back from Brazil, where progression was really easy, and I was on a very high speed progressing, and then getting here to Cape Town, and I think you guys all know, like, this is a different story. And I was coming back, I couldn't even loop. I was just really scared. I was afraid, and like rethinking my entire decision that I've done. And am I really a professional kite surfer? Can I really do this? I think the biggest opponent, the biggest sometimes enemy and friend is your own mind. Like, I've most of the time, when people told me I can't do it, which they did, like, even especially, like, I'm from Germany, most of my friends don't even know what is kite surfing, and here I am saying, yeah, I'm gonna get a professional. So there's been many times also I've been struggling with my parents because they told me, go study, do something. I was like, nah, staying at the beach. So there's been many times people told me I can't do it, or even myself telling or asking myself, can I really do it? And I think this was the biggest struggle, or the biggest stage to overcome, to tell myself, or to also find out, is it what I want? Like, there's many changes in your life that come, and you have to always refresh and rethink, okay, is it really my dream? Just because I had this goal to become a professional, do I really have fun with it anymore, or still? So actually recently, I just went out, didn't have a good session, saw other girls looping, doing whatever tricks, and I was like, nah, let's just stop right now. And took another kite, just took a bigger kite and had fun. Just went for a couple of board-offs and variations, and then I realized, stop, I'm actually not doing this because I want to be the best, or I want to be a professional, or whatever. I just want to do it because this is the moment what I'm having most fun, and where I feel alive, where I feel like with myself and fully complete. And no one should ever stop feeling that. And there is times when you push it where everyone will get to a point, I reckon, where you feel, okay, this is not fun anymore. And sometimes, like, when I have to learn a new trick, or not have to, but I want to, I just have to always remind myself, this is what I want and not what I have to do. I don't need to do any of this. I have to do it because I want it.
And you're an athlete, a kite surfing athlete as your profession right now, and that's, well, part of it, which is fantastic. So congratulations, and keep pushing that.
Thank you so much.
And then Terri, just to round us off, you're in the passionate athletes and pro athletes section.
For the athlete tag, but anyway.
I mean, athletes come in all shapes and sizes. So you've been doing it for 20 years. When you're down at the beach, do you still get approached by people asking you why you're doing it, or asking you how can they get into it? Which one's more common of those two questions?
Probably both. I think I get approached obviously by lots of women because I'm 56 years old. I don't look like an athlete. So I get approached by a woman who might not have the confidence to approach the younger generation. They ask me, you need to be strong, strong. You look like you're strong. So I said, I'm actually not strong at all. I'm not fit. I'm just love the sport. And I think one of the most important things about kiting, and I know it happened to me because I took a year to learn. A year. Because of the extremeness of the kiting you do on your own. We used to drive through to Langeree, pump your kite up 7 o'clock in the morning, sleep under the kite until it starts, because you only had an hour window because then it was too much wind. So, so that's what we used to do. But I think the most important, you don't have to be strong, you don't have to be anything, you just have to have the perseverance to push through the launches through the air, there's things like that. I think that's the most important thing. This is an incredible sport, and once you get to that space where you're going upwind and you're not running downwind the whole time, you don't mean to. You want to go upwind, like, in Langeree or whatever. But I think then you reach that. And I'm still now, yesterday I went out, the waves were huge. I was so scared, and I've been doing this 20 years. I was so scared, but I have these people who say, come out, Terri, don't worry, the wave's quite slow, just go. And I went and had an incredible session, caught probably the biggest wave I've ever caught, and I came out and I was amped. And I'm 56 years old, I've been doing this 20 years. That's what I think the sport is about. So yeah, people come up and I say, do it, doesn't matter. Caroline, unfortunately, Caroline's 63. She kites every single day and sups in the morning and kites in the afternoon. So there's no funniness. We have friends that started kiting at 50, women. So I think that's what I love about the sport. It levels the playing fields when you're on the water. Then it levels the playing fields.
So there's lots of diversity in
There's
this sport,
there's so
and it's
much,
diversity to be celebrated.
And for example, when Kevin speaks about his sister was an inspiration to me, yet I was 20 years older than her, but she was an inspiration. Shokia was an inspiration to me. She was really the first woman in South Africa who put a South African woman on the cover of a magazine. So Shokia was really, I think, the person who inspired women in South Africa to get out kiting.
That is exactly it. We did invite Shokia here today. She's just been busy, so she wasn't able to join us.
So,
the
I love
fastest
the title of
African
athlete,
woman.
But, I was just a person who just wanted to get into the sport. And my friend Janet said, she's having this competition, you better enter, because I've got no woman who's going to enter. And then, the GUST girls as well. When we started GUST girls, we wanted more girls to get into kiting. And it was crazy. We had the guys here. We had guys paying for their girlfriends to go and do lessons just so that their girlfriends don't moan when they go kiting, That's not the way to do it, girls. we had girls on the beach, so scared of the kite. But my boyfriend said I must do it. And he paid for the lessons. So yeah. But some of those girls push through, and they are kiting, and they don't have the boyfriends anymore, but they're still kiting.
Which is awesome. So we've got to share with all of our friends, doesn't matter what relationships they're in, that they need to stay in the sport.
It doesn't matter, yeah. And it'll take you, actually, when you're having a bad day, I'm working now, and we've got high stressful jobs. You get on the water in the afternoon for an hour, that stress is gone, and you can go back to whatever. Yeah. I talk a lot, guys, sorry.
So thank you guys for joining us. So we've got the veteran, well, two of them, but from different specters. So thank you very much for joining us, Kevin, Alessa, and Terri. So I would like to invite up our next two guest speakers together, and that is Ben's mom. So Ben Rootman's mom, who's Amanda. So Amanda, come on up. So Ben is an up-and-coming big air rider who's been kite looping and doing amazing things on video, and I've seen his mom's expression when he's achieved it. But I'll tell you that Amanda herself is a fantastic wave rider and motivating lady when she's out there on the water. So you want to grab that microphone right there, Amanda. So hi to Amanda. And then our other guest joining us is Sera's dad. And so Sera's dad is world famous in the woo kiteboarding world as one of the biggest jumping men in Cape Town and globally. He actually got a podium finish, I think, in the woo worlds a couple of years ago. But he's also the dad of young and upcoming athlete Sera Mason. So come on up, Brett. Brett, the dad of. So welcome. So if you want to grab seats. So I got the other guest that we invited over was Oswald Smith's mum, Gustavi. Now, she wasn't able to make it, but she had some comments that she said she would have loved to share with any parents of young kids and experiences that she had raising a young pro athlete and the ups and downs she goes through. So she said the biggest things she had challenges with, not just her as a mum, but as the whole family, with the athlete who is trying to make it as a professional athlete, trying to make money out of it in the long run, and having to deal with their failures and successes. It's like a roller coaster ride. So my first question to you, Brett, is you've got a young daughter who's getting into kiting, and she's just picked up some Grom sponsorship from Reedin, who was Kevin was our last speaker. Are you like, you taught her to kite at quite a young age? Was it because you wanted to share the passion of kiteboarding, or did you think there's a potential for her to be a really good kiter in the long run?
Good question. Yeah, shit. No, it was a completely selfish pursuit so that I didn't have to spend less time in the water.
Exactly the same.
Now, that was going to be my next question to Amanda, because I always saw Amanda riding out there, and then there was always these two Groms. And I remember meeting you at the beach one day, and you said, "Oh, bugger, you got to go get the kids from school," and it was going to interfere with your riding time. So, did you want your kids to become, do you want them to become pro athletes, or do you just wanted them to be independent kiters?
Well, hi everybody. I definitely wasn't thinking that they would become pros, but just by way of the fact that they started when they were so young. When you start a sport when you're so young, there is potential to get good at it. Unlike myself, who started, in my mid-30s, it was difficult. It's easier when you're younger to get really good. So we weren't thinking about that, but just because of them kiting all the time and because of us kiting together for so long, they just got, Ben got really good. He is obviously quite talented. And he has a bit of a dream to still try and make it, but yeah, it's not always easy.
And as a family, do you think it's held you together, having both parents and kids kiting together? Do you have insights into your kids' lives that you think other parents who don't do activities with their kids?
I think maybe, and that is part of the reason why I wanted to do it, and also, as Brett said, and that is a real big one for me, when we started off, they started kiting when they were like 8 years old, and even younger, actually, flying the kites on the beach. But it was purely selfish because I needed backup. So, when there's three of you out there kiting, the other people in the family can't really say, you spend so much time out there. So I needed real backup, and it worked in my favor. So we were always the three of us, and we were the majority.
Families who kite together stay together.
But then also the upshot of that is also getting to spend many, many years being close to them in the water and in the sport. And it's amazing sport, obviously, as everyone knows here. So it's been like a privilege to be with them as they're growing up, which is exactly what Brett's going to go through with Sera. Except I think Sarah's going to be the next big thing in women's kiteboarding.
Now, that's the other question I've got for you is, do you think it's easier to have boys kiting, having sons, or have you got friends, or are there other girls out there kiting, young girls, who are at the same level as your sons?
I know a lot of the youngsters kiting, and there are a lot of amazing, talented girl kiters. And also I've seen what's made me really happy, even though I'm not like a typical kind of pro-woman type person in general. I'm pro everybody. The growth in the women's section of kiting has been massive. When I started, there was literally hardly any women. Now there are tons of women, and it's great to see that. I love seeing that, and I'm very supportive of any girl that wants to get into the sport. Generally, girls seem to be a bit more scared of the sharp learning curve, but I always encourage them and just tell them it's the same sharp learning curve for a guy or a girl. You can totally do it, and it will be the best thing you ever do. And a good example is Ben's girlfriend, Simone, who started off being the kite bitch for about a week and then said, no, this is not for me. I'm learning how to do this. and she's a competent kiter now, and amazing. Yeah, so just another person we get to share the stoke with.
That's great.
Yeah.
So the whole family gets to do stuff together.
Completely, yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah. And Brett, I mean, Sarah's learning experience. I mean, if she was a boy, would you have taught her any differently to how you taught her as a girl?
Yeah, once again, my teaching techniques are under scrutiny. Shame, she's been shouted up a couple times. I don't think I would have changed anything. And obviously Amanda having boys, I've seen in Sera like a natural ability that, as an athlete, and take gender completely out of the equation, Sera has more talent in her left pinky than I possess in my entire body. And it's very difficult as a father to see that much ability and natural ability and stuff that she does unconsciously, to not want to help her progress. And I sometimes wonder if it's a selfish thing, or if I'm doing it for her, or is she doing it for herself. But there's been sometimes an insurmountable amount of pressure, and the lessons that have been taught have not necessarily always been taught in the best possible way, especially from a man to a girl. But
and maybe
she's tough.
She's taught you a couple of things along the way.
I think between her and Megan, they've both taught me a lot. Yeah, to be a little bit more gentle. But it's been quite an experience.
So you've learned a little bit of technique from the girls, because it's not always muscle, is it?
Definitely not. With big air, like Alessa was saying, it's a lot of technique. There's no reason why a female rider cannot be as good as a male rider. Obviously, freestyle is a little bit more complicated. It is power driven, but Sera shows so much ability, and I honestly believe that she could compete as an athlete, and regardless of genders. So very much like Angeli, and there's a lady by the name of Julia Rick who wakeboards. These are phenomenal athletes, and I think Sera has that ability as well.
Yeah, and it's as long as her passion keeps growing. Do you think, as a family, if you keep kiting together, that'll help things? I know you've got another one coming along.
Yeah, sucker for punishment. It's a very strange place to play in, because I've got to nurture like passion as well as progression. And for an 11-year-old, you got to keep the stoke alive and keep going forward, but you don't want to push too hard. So we try and make it as fun as possible. But look, at the end of the day, she is sponsored, and there are some results that are required.
Which is great. So the sponsorship side of things, does that mean that Dad gets gear as well, or? Okay, I guess that's a no. Amanda, have you had any, with your sons, sponsorship? Are they on a national or international riders deal or anything like that?
They're very much on a mom deal. No, they were. Ben, in his own right, has got secured his own national as opposed to international sponsorship. He'd very much like to get that to international, but it's not easy. And especially in the current climate, with people tightening belts and pulling out of sponsorships, because that is what gives when businesses' bottom lines are struggling. It's even harder. So it's a tough game to be in for him, trying to get somewhere. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, I've given him the basis to have a sport that he can enjoy for the rest of his life, both of them, whether they're boys or girls. And I always said to him, don't go for the kiting competition. Is a very small. It's not very big internationally. I'm talking about if you want to be a professional athlete like a tennis player or a golfer, there's a lot more
money in it.
Correct. So do it for the fun of it, and if you get to a place where you can make an income out of it, great. But don't count on that for the rest of your life, because it's not going to happen. basically you have a sport that you can do for the rest of your life and share the stoke and the passion with. More important, I think, than competing for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, it's great to compete, obviously, and he'd love to, but it's not the be-all and end-all. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd like to just end with something that Gustavi said, and that was if your kids have a good grounding at home and a good place to come back to, they will always come back home. And with kiteboarding, that in their family, that's the grounding, that the glue that holds it together, the family together. And you guys, I mean, we've discussed it already. So, Manda, you think even if your kids go off in 10 years' time, 15 years' time,
Definitely.
they'll be coming back home to come.
Oh, for sure. They'll come to where the garage is with the most kites for free.
And Brett, do you think you're going to be getting the next generation into this after Sera?
Yeah, we can only hope.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, and we are now going on to the next generation. We're going to start off with our next gen Grom. My first question is, this is young Sera Mason. Sera, could you tell us how old you are at the moment and how old you were when you learned to kite surf? And there's the microphone.
I was, so I'm 11. I was 7 when I first started, but when I went for my very first session, I was 18 months.
Oh, wow. And was that between your dad's legs or on his
No,
back?
My dad was probably holding me like tight.
Oh, very, very cool. So that was 18 months. So that means that you've been kite surfing for 10 years already.
Yeah. But I actually only really started when I was 7.
Yeah. And so when you learned to kite surf, did you say to your dad, I want to do this? Or did dad say, come Sera, I'm going to give you a lesson?
No, I started screaming and shouting and I absolutely hated it. But now I absolutely love it.
Which is awesome. So it goes to show dad knows best. Hey?
Yes, dad knows best.
It's fantastic. And next in line, we have the World Class Kite Academy. We've got a couple of the teachers and 3 of the students. Now, the World Class Kite Academy, did you want to summarize this? So this is Kate.
Katie, yeah.
Katie from World Class Kite Academy. Can you summarize what the World Class Kite Academy is and how it is prepping our next generation of kiters?
Yeah, sure. So we are a school. At the moment, we've got 14 students. There's some in the crowd as well as these 3 here. So we go to a different kiting destination each quarter, and we will teach them, so obviously the academic lessons. So academic lessons will run in the morning and part of the afternoon, and then so we have the academic side, and then we also have the kite surfing side. So we have our head coach Franco and assistant coach Merla, who will be talking with each of the students about what their specific kite surfing goals are and working with them on how to achieve those. We look at it from, so not just like what tricks you want to learn, but also what kind of athletic goals you might have as well, and how you're going to kind of achieve that big picture goal at the end of each quarter or semester.
Fantastic. And how long have you been kite surfing?
I have been kite surfing I learned when I was 18, so 12 years.
So you were quite a youngster when you learned. And so you were next generation when you started. So awesome. Thank you. And next up is Merla. Yes. You one of the coaches as well. So you've also been kite surfing a while. But when it comes to approaching on the coaching side, do you differentiate at all between the boys and the girls that you coach in any way?
No, not really. So we see them as athletes, not depending if it's a male or a female athlete. So obviously they all work on their individual levels, different tricks, different workout goals as well. But we don't really change workout exercises or anything depending on their gender. It's just a big group, and we all together try to, raise everybody's individual performance.
Fantastic. And yourself, what's your preferred kiting style?
Oh, definitely freestyle.
Yeah. So Cape Town isn't the the ideal place to be hanging out with your with
No, it's great. It's always great because every discipline, like whether it's wave or big air, it still also helps you with freestyle. So just your kite control, your board control improves by riding in those waves. And I think it's still to have different playgrounds and adapt to the conditions. I think it's just helping your overall performance as well.
So variety is important.
Yeah, for sure.
Fantastic. Now, on to our students. So next up, can you tell us your name and how old you are and where you're from?
I'm from Argentina. I'm called Maike. I have 16 years old.
You're 16 years old. Excellent. And how long have you been kite surfing? How old were you when you learned to kite surf?
I think that I have 13.
13? Yeah, nice. And at the moment, what kite surfing style do you like to ride? Is it big air or wave or freestyle?
I like big air.
Big air, excellent. And the rider that inspires you, the female rider that you think has got really good style or that you'd like to ride like?
I like the style so much of Claudia Leon.
Claudia Leon? Nice. Excellent. And have you met her yet? Have you been to a beach and watched Claudia ride or?
No, I don't have that.
Not yet. So maybe with the World Class Kite Academy you'll get a chance. Excellent. Thanks. And next up, your age, name, and where you're from.
My name is Lucia. I'm 17 years old and I'm from Switzerland.
You're from Switzerland. Excellent. And your riding style of preference, what do you like to ride?
Probably old school.
Old school. So what tricks one day do you think you really want to do? Like in the next year, what do you think?
Maybe I want to learn board offs.
Board offs, fantastic. And being at the World Class Kite Academy, like how long have you been here with them?
I started in summer.
Okay, and have you learned quite a bit while you've been there?
Yeah, for sure, because I only properly started with kite surfing in summer, so...
So that's a good progression, very, very good progression. Excellent. So next generation, World Class Kite Academy gives you a little bit of a push, hey? Fantastic. And what do you think of Cape Town? Do you like the big waves or is it a bit scary?
I like it a lot. At first I was pretty scared, but it's good to learn.
Nice. And so in your class, how many, in this group, how many boys and girls are there?
It's just us 3 girls and then like about 10 boys.
Okay. And do you ride better than most of the boys or not yet?
Not exactly, but...
Not yet. Fantastic. Thank you very much. And next up, we've got...
Aria.
And how old are you, Aria?
I'm 12 years old, and I'm from Bulgaria.
Bulgaria. And how long have you been kite surfing?
I've been kiting for 3 years, so since I was 9.
Fantastic. And I hear you like all the disciplines. Which one's your favorite?
I think it depends on the conditions, but I love both freestyle and big air.
Fantastic. And in for your tricks, what are you working on at the moment? What do you want to be able to do by the end of this time at World Class Kite Academy?
I like big kite loops. Really go for it.
Fantastic. And do you see yourself competing in the Big Air Kite League or on the GKA one day?
Yes, I do. I really do want to compete.
Yeah, so that's competition is where you're going.
Yes.
And are there any, girls at home in Bulgaria that you kite surf with, or are they mostly boys that you kite surf?
I think it's like equal amount, but...
So you've got lots of...
Yes, I do have friends who are girls and also kite surf and boys.
And so in Cape Town, with the big waves, do you get scared or not at all?
No, it's fine. I enjoy it, I think.
And where's your favorite place you've kite surfed so far?
I think Cape Town.
We got really good options. So I'd like to come back to Sera on this side because Cape Town is her home spot. And so Sera, where was the first place that you kite surfed?
I actually don't know the name of it. It was like, probably, I think it was Muizenberg.
Was it Muizenberg? Yeah.
But that was not where my very first session was. But that was where I like usually was like kiting, because that's like the only place that I could kite without me like panicking and like freaking out, because at that time I was just like very paranoid about it and I don't know why. But like, yeah.
I must say the first time I met young Sera was 2019, I think it was. And her dad was busy dragging her back out into the water at Muizenberg, and then she'd go screaming along on a little 4 or 5 meter kite, and I was just very, very impressed with the guts that this little girl had, and she'd get back in there and do it again and again. So I see now that you've gone a long way from there to actually doing some really cool tricks. What's your trick that you're working on at the moment, the one that you really enjoy trying?
Well, lately I need to get better at my loops, but I can loop. But I want to try doing board offs, like I'm trying to do that.
Nice. And I hear that you've got new sponsorship as a Grom. How does that feel?
Yeah, it's really cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Do they expect a lot of you as a sponsored rider, or is it easy-go-lucky, or?
No, well, there's like a little bit required, but it's nice to have something that you need to like get towards instead of just like lumming in your one area. It's like you have to keep going forwards to like progress and stuff. So it's nice.
So you enjoy being a semi-pro Grom rider?
Yes.
Fantastic. So let me have a look here, because there was another question specifically for you. Who inspires you in kiteboarding?
I look up to Maike quite a bit. Like I want to be like her. I also look up to my dad. He's a little bit of a grouch, but I still love him a lot.
That's awesome. And do you think you're going to be kiting with your dad in 20 years' time when he's an old man?
Yeah, definitely. If he still wants to kite at that time.
Because you might be better than him by then, he might give up.
I don't know. Maybe.
Excellent. And then my last question to you is, for you, women in kiteboarding, so have you had a look at the difference between boys and girls, and do you think that we need to look at people as athletes, or is it like, so it doesn't matter if he's a boy or a girl, they can compete together, or should we have girls divisions and boys divisions? I know this is a hard question, but I mean, do you want to compete against the boys is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I do want to compete against the boys, but I think that there's also like a fine line between like how people like think girls, like women are, and like girls, and then how they think men and boys are. Okay. So yeah, I do want to compete against males and boys.
Because it's technique, isn't it?
Yeah.
Totally. Fantastic. I'm looking forward to seeing you beat the boys out there. Okay. And then last question for the ladies from the Kite Academy, Katy Merla. For the next generation that you guys are working with, do you see a difference in the approach that the girls take on average, or the boys, when it comes to their kite surfing? Or is it just individuals, like you've got to work to each individual strength, boys or girls?
Yeah, so I think it's a really individual thing. I think every person has got certain strengths and certain things they need to work on and improve on. And I think there's not really like a one model fits all for the girls or for the boys. I think it's really done on a kind of an individual basis, I would say.
Fantastic. And Mel, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think that's maybe also what you can see in pro female athletes. Like some of them are radical and throwing big loops and going into risks. And then there's others like really technical, having a bit of a different approach. And still both of those ways to solve a task or solve a trick and improve performance, like get to the goal to be a pro athlete.
Yeah, so both boys and girls have those traits in them. It's just the individual that changes. Yeah, fantastic. Did we have any questions? Yes, Monique?
I would like to know for the two teachers, working with guys versus girls, the emotional area, do you find that the females' emotions are something you have to work with a little bit more than the guys?
Good question. No, not really. It's because we have not only boys and girls, but also quite a big range of ages. Like we have everything from about 12 years until 18 years. And I think it's not only gender, but also age, how people respond emotionally to fear or taking risks. But then also we see like teamwork, they all together try to go out in this condition and not,
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, another one. Do you find fear of the conditions or fear of other people's opinions which one is the stronger fear you guys have to deal with?
That's a solid question.
I think in our group, the fear of opinion is quite small. I think we all accept each other's level of riding, each other's fears, and in general, I don't know, what would you say?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think it's more, taking the conditions into account and planning, your session and what you're going to try. I think that's probably is the bigger thing than kind of individual pressure. I think we've got quite a supportive group, and people will, be youping each other on the water and just kind of encouraging each other just to try whatever it is they're working on, be it, a back roll or a boogie loop. It doesn't matter.
Okay, and then we might need your help on the next question for the girls. If you could tell the girls out there who aren't at the World Class Kite Academy and aren't working on their kite surfing, why you love kite surfing and why they should give it a go. And I think Aya's going to get this one. Why do you tell your friends who don't kite surf that they should give it a go? What about kite surfing do you love?
I think because it's a really great sport that makes opportunities for you to meet new people, to explore the world, and just have a lot of fun.
Nice. I think that's a very good summary. So from the youngest, second youngest in this group, thank you very much, and thank you, ladies, for joining us. And next generation, good luck to you, and look forward to seeing you on the water. Should we move straight on to the next part, which is our mind and body specialists. So we have Maike here, as well as Miriam from Wake Up Stoked. Is she around? Oh, yay. So the two of you want to come up because following on from those solid questions from Monique about dealing with fear and emotions, and I think we've got you two who are amazing specialists in this field. So, so I'm first going to ask, so Miriam, what's your background? Could you give us a quick summary on both what you do and on your kite surfing experience to date?
Okay, so I've been a kite surfer since 11 years, and it's actually also been the reason...
Have a seat, ladies.
Why I quit my job and I became a digital nomad to work remotely at all the kite surf spots. And about the mind-body connection, I had a kite surf accident 2 years ago, and I couldn't do anything for months and was really tied to my bed. And then I tried a breathwork session, and it really kind of did what kitesurfing always did to me, like this, like being really present and this also high and being in the flow. So then I did like a breathwork training, and now I'm also a breathwork facilitator. So that's the short.
The long and the short of it. Fantastic. So, breathwork, what is that?
It's a very big word, but basically it's just breathing. It can be all kind of different breathing exercises, even just being aware of your breath, up to the point that you do exercises to like calm anxiety or to push yourself up or to even have almost like a psychedelic experience if you do it for a longer time. So yeah, can be a whole array of things, but basically you're controlling your breath in a certain way and changing the chemistry in your body.
So it's something that you should be teaching to these young kite surfers as well, which is fantastic. And then on to Maike. So you give us a quick summary of who you are, what you do.
Maike. I've been here, I got here like 13 years ago from Germany. And because I wasn't allowed to work and because I lived in Big Bear, I saw all these kites out and I thought, wow, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen, coming from a sailing background. And so I learned kite surfing and became an instructor, worked at the shop and all that stuff. But now I teach yoga and do life and leadership coaching, teach meditation, mindfulness, and that's me, yeah.
So valuable stuff to be doing. Do you still get out on the water kiting?
Once in a while. I'm a bit of I like the empty waters, so when it's busy out here, I stay away. And I also do a lot of downwind paddleboarding and surfing. So the kite surfing has taken a bit of a back seat because I do love challenges, and the surfing is a great challenge at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And that's working with the mind and body, I suppose. It's keeping those challenges going. Yeah, fantastic. Now, Miriam, with your breathwork, could you summarize for an average athlete, so just your lady going to the beach, kiting for 2 weeks on holiday, and experiencing like all of the emotions that you experience if you haven't done it you haven't gone kiting since last season, and you're there and there's maybe the conditions are a little bit different or there's more people on the beach watching you. Is there a tool that you can share with us to think about, or to even for us to share with our friends that we meet at the beach who might have those fears?
Yeah, so what we usually do when we get nervous is we either breathe faster or we kind of hold our breath. So one of the easiest things you can do to calm down your nervous system in any situation, even if you're in a traffic jam or something, is to simply slow down your exhale. So exhale slower. And also, I don't know about you, but if you're kiting and you're like jumping over the waves, you're breathing a lot through your mouth. So one of the things you can try to do is like breathing through your nose. And yeah, in general, you could even like breathe in for 4, breathe out for 8. Like really slow down the exhale. So that's like a super simple breathing technique to like calm yourself down.
I feel calmer just doing that once. So there we go. Which is fantastic. Now, I've got... There's a question here which the girls wrote down for me, which is, so you've been kite surfing for 11 years. And for you personally as a woman, how did it feel to learn and improve and keep growing as a kite surfer in what may have been a male-dominant environment, or was it a male-dominant environment? How was your progression over the years?
Well, I'm from Munich, from Germany, and the first year, like I learned kite surfing, and I got so hooked to it that I booked a one-way flight to Dominican Republic and stayed there for a year. And back then, there weren't too many women, and like I started with my brother, and he's always been pushing and supporting me. But of course, I compared myself to my brother, and he was like on the board after 3 days. For me, it took me another week of having supervision. So I always compared myself to the guys, and I always felt like I wasn't really good enough. And everyone, also the men in my life, told me, "But you're amazing for a woman." But still, my standard was always too like.
It's those words, for a woman.
But in general, like, yeah, I hear it a lot, and I still hear it. Like, I go quite overpowered. Like, are you sure you want to go out on that size? Like, even now, after 11 years, and even after the level is like has risen so much, I still hear that a lot, and the doubt in men. Yeah.
So that, do you hear that from everybody or just the guys?
No, just the guys and like strangers, people who don't know me on the beach. Yeah.
And that's the same as being an older person. I often get it as well. So, yeah, fantastic. Maike, so you mentioned that you've got all these other things that you've downward paddling and surfing and challenges, and you became a mum since you've learned to kite surf. And from the beginning of kite surfing to now, since in your kiting, so how long have you been kiting? 13 years?
Mm.
Yeah. So from when you started kite surfing out here in Cape Town in the big waves and strong winds to now, have you seen a change in the female participation?
Yeah, it's like everything changed. Like you also pointed out, it's amazing. I remember when those first directional wave boards kind of came in, and then it was like have straps on or be strapless. And I used to also compare myself to the guys, and so most of them were doing these radical things, and I thought, yoga teacher, let me take those straps off and go that direction. At least then I'm doing my own thing. And back then it was like, wow, oh my goodness, that's insane. She took her straps off. And whenever you looked at the water, like you would know every lady kiting. It was really interesting. And now there's just everyone out, and everyone does all these crazy things, whether it's in the waves or big air. I mean, when I kited, I got onto the podium often, but usually just because I took part. I kited big air events. I mean, I think I jumped 8 meters and I became second.
That's world class in some parts of the world. So don't put yourself down.
No, it's a lot has changed. That's what I want to say. A lot has changed. Like people come to me and say, "Oh wow," and I'm like, "No, it wasn't like that then."
Fantastic. And do you think that's in the last 10 years, because you've been involved in it and seen the kite surfing change, both of you? Is there more of an awareness of how your mind and your body are connected, and within the kite surfing scene, or even just in general in the world? Do we talk about these connections more now than what we did 10 years ago? Because you're both in it, so it would be interesting to see if you think there's been an increase in it. Go for it, Maike.
So maybe 5 years ago, when I'd say I'm a yoga and meditation teacher, people would be like, "Oh, yoga, yeah, I like yoga, amazing." And now I say it, and they're like, "Oh, meditation, I'm into meditation, or I do mindfulness and this and that." So there's a big shift there, I think, and I can't say if it's specific for kite surfing, but I think there's a greater awareness of the power of the mind, of how we can train something, but really aligning ourselves in our own meta perspective of where am I going and who do I want to be in this world, and then aligning our actions with that. I feel like maybe 20 years ago that was like the hidden thing, and now it's more common knowledge. That's my impression. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, as Alessa said it before, your mind can be your biggest friend or your biggest enemy. And you can have exactly the same session and having a complete a shit session, because in your mind you're like, oh, this is shit, and then you get hung up on one thing and it impacts you, and you can have the most amazing session, and your perspective changes everything, and your mind changes everything, like in everyday life and kite surfing.
I would love to add something like Kevin said earlier. If you do and you put in the hard work, the sky is the limit, and I think that's really important. Like you said, it's if you can see it and you can imagine it's possible, and you align your actions and choices to it, then really anything is possible. And holding that in mind, I'm really excited about where the sport could possibly go, or not just the sport, I mean humanity. Why not think big?
And I think kite surfing communities are the start of I mean, this is a community, and bringing people together is quite important, because it allows us to see different perspectives and realize that how we see the world is tainted with our experiences, and sometimes we've got to listen to those around us and hear what they have to say. And I know that on the sign-up form, the ladies were saying that there were a lot of you here who were interested in the idea of the mind and body. And are there any questions for these two ladies from the floor? Monique.
Yeah, you were speaking earlier on around how people, when they see you going out in certain conditions, they give you that sense of doubt. So I often see that as seeds of doubt, and they generally do grow, carry with the person. How have you been able to kind of move past that and not allow those seeds of doubt to actually take root?
By taking action and by going out, and then if I see this doubt now, I'm like, okay, now I'm going to show you right away what I'm capable of. Like actually by taking action and getting confidence from repeated action, by doing it again, and also by having super supportive people in my life. And instead of asking myself what could go wrong, like I'm now, okay, what's the best thing that could happen if I do it now? Like actually that perspective, like your mind changes everything, and priming yourself, asking yourself the right questions to have a different experience. Like, why am I capable of this? Why? How many times have I done this before?
So how do you then overcome your own self-doubt?
Like really by doing it, and also by asking myself, okay, when was the last time I had this kind of doubt? What did I do then? And did I succeed? And most of the times, yes, you do succeed, or you do improve and you do learn.
Do you find your breathwork or meditation is a vehicle for you to move through that?
For me, for sure. Breathwork, and I think breathwork is also a kind of meditation, has helped me for the first time to observe my mind more, but also actually put a kind of a pause in between my thought and questioning, well, is that thought actually true? And I could never do that before. And and then it gives me that pause, and then I'm like, no, this thought is bullshit, and I'm rewriting it. But maybe you also want to add on.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
May I? It makes me think of something one of my meditation teachers used to say. She said, if of all of this we talked about this whole weekend, if you just take back one thing, is do not believe your thoughts. And I mean, years ago I was like, huh? What? But now I get it, because it's like a radio playing in our head, and what you just said is creating that gap between your thoughts, the doubt, and all the blah blah, and to really become very disciplined in where do I put energy and where do I not put energy, and through that, when there's doubt coming up, to go like, okay, I can go down that route, or I can follow my truth, my path, my vision, And what came up earlier when you said doubt from others, maybe, it's quite interesting. You also said it's all a question of perspective. I've never felt anyone doubted me. I always thought it was admiration. So, if someone says, are you sure you want to go out on that size? I would never thought, I never thought they doubted me. I was like,
absolutely love that.
Take me.
That is a really, really good perspective. Yeah. And I mean, that's my perspective is I don't have to look at myself on the water. So,
Yeah, and maybe one more thing before putting in that space when your doubt comes to actually question is to actually become aware, when do I think bad or self-limiting thoughts? Because before I wasn't even aware when I would think that, I would just feel like shit, and I'm like, why do I feel like shit? And it took me a while to actually, you can reprogram your brain, you can retrain your brain to think better thoughts. And just as you train your muscle, you can train your brain to think differently through meditation, breath work. Also, kitesurfing is a form of active meditation, of being in a moment.
that is, that's my place where everything else stops. And kite surfing takes over, and the hairier the conditions, the more I have to concentrate on being here, rather than being in my mind. Now, I mean, you're both lady kiters, and what do you wish for women's kiteboarding? Like the biggest wish that you could have for women's kiteboarding in 5 years' time. I know it's not on the script, it wasn't a question that you were asked, but I think because you understand the mind and the body, and you've seen these athletes come up, and the parents of the athletes, and there's like all these people involved in the industry and bringing people together. Is there anything that, like, any aspiring big goals that as a community you think we could work towards, and where women's kiteboarding can be?
Can I start, or you want to? I think you already said it, community. Like, the people that are around you, they can uplift you, and I hope that we are more, because sometimes, or we were taught as women, she's a concurrence, no, how do you say? She's the enemy, but actually she's the friend. We all uplift each other, and I think community is a really big part.
What I'm interested in is where there's this beautiful saying, it's not about where you take it from, it's where you take it to. And I feel there's space there, like, where we can go past, like, okay, now we jump as high as the guys, or now we do freestyle like the guys, and it's always happening. But where can we take it? What can we add to the sport in how we are built and how we see the world, and maybe create a new discipline, or, that sort of thing I'm interested in. Like, what's maybe a new thing we can create?
So women supporting women to go in the female direction, or the ladies, like women-specific, not women-specific, but women-led kiteboarding.
Yeah, this is so beautiful, and I think it's like, rather than comparing, create your own and build on your own strengths and develop your own style instead of trying to jump the same height or do the same trick, because there's so much strength in it, and if you build up on that, it can become something completely different.
I think that is very, very inspiring. Now, both of these ladies do clinics and things like that, and hold space for athletes and also probably non-athletes as well, right? So you can find Miriam at Wake Up Stoked, is that?
Yes, Wake Up Stoked is the kitesurf profile, or sparkyourfire.coaching, it's the breathwork.
And then Maike's, and where are you based, Miriam? Globally?
I'm like for 4 or 5 months a year in Cape Town, and then I'm roaming around in Europe, usually at kitesurf destinations, but I also give online classes.
So you can find her wherever you are?
From the camper van.
Yes.
The life. And for you, where can we find you if we want to grow and expand? And
in the sea. No, I do have a website, which is not there at the moment, but my name is Maike Brasser, so you can find me anywhere under that name, all the social media.
Or at the beach
the
in Cape Town.
Or on the beach, on my longboard most of the time.
And I just want to say, I was so thrilled when I knew Maike would be here, because for me, she's the most amazing yoga teacher, and it goes way beyond yoga, what her classes are, so you should really try it out.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Specific to think about when you want to begin, like begin breathwork, begin meditation, you recommend something?
That's a great question.
But usually the first step is the hardest one.
So I would say take it. First step, take it. That's the best start. Because once you're going, you know. Just if you have an idea, find a yoga teacher, or maybe a yoga teacher finds you, or you now have a sense of, oh, this thing I want to try. Just ask her. Just take the step. Because you never know unless you try. And there's so many different ways of doing coaching or meditation, or, you know, and just go for it and find someone you resonate with. And you can only do that as you do and as you go for it. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, very, very true. And I think it's something that calls you a bit. Like, for example, with breathwork, it's this big woo-woo word still. And sometimes you feel like, okay, now is the right moment and I want to join this person and that's it. But if you're interested, there's a million like breathwork videos out there and things to try. So, but for me personally, I think it makes such, like, you can try yoga and you can try yoga. Like, for me, the instructor makes a really big difference. So I think if you resonate with a person, then do it with that person.
I think that applies to most things in life. Don't give it a go just once and give it up because of the person that you did it with. If you want to do it, go back a second time or a third time.
And you know, there's nothing you can lose. Just, you know, try it. You might have spent an hour of your life trying something new, and you'll still be wiser than before, even though you didn't like it or whatever. So just do it.
Thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you. No, because you've been in the industry so long. Like, how did you experience the whole change, or like, was there a big change in the industry about like women or not? What was your experience working with old men and all that?
So I've been very fortunate that from when I saw kite surfing, the first person I saw kiting on television was Julie Prochaska, who was a woman. American women world champion at the time, and she was traveling Australia, and it was on the news in the UK, of all places, and I saw it, and I messaged a friend of mine who actually owns Board and Kite Africa, Landwell. I said, I just saw the sport, I want to give it a go, and he said, I've just bought my first kite. So from the beginning, there weren't any struggles to get into the sport for me. So he said, come on over. I flew his kite. I was hooked. I bought my own kite. And then we ended up traveling for kiting. And I ended up in New Zealand. And there's a big contrast at the time. I was from South Africa. And in South Africa, I always used to make the joke before I left South Africa that my feet are too big here. And what that was is I couldn't stand close enough to the stove because my feet are so big. And the joke in that is you have to, in South Africa, as a woman, you have to be petite and be behind the scenes and the whole lot. And when I got to New Zealand, it was a completely different perspective. Here, when you said, I'm going to do it, then there was always a man saying, can I assist you? Or even once when I came back for kite surfing, I was busy pumping a kite up on the beach. Up at Stillby, and I was pumping the kite up, and a guy in his 40s, I was in my 20s, and there was a guy in his 40s with his teenage son. They walked over and they said, are you pumping this up for your husband? And that was very much the perception I got. Like every time I came back to South Africa, that's kind of the reception I got as a kiter. So, which was completely different to the reception that I got when I got to New Zealand, where everyone was like, oh, here it is, give it a go. Oh, you need to try this, you need to try this. And there was support all the way. And I became a kiter. I started sweeping the floors in what became my husband's, he became my husband, but in DK's workshop. Because I was interested in how boards were being made. So there was a board building factory there. So I learnt about that. And then I started working in a shop with guys who owned the shop. And then they had male instructors who were useless. They were cowboys. And so the one day the cowboy didn't arrive for the lessons. So the shop owner said, can you do the lessons, Sue? And that's how I became an instructor. And along the way I kept learning, and I had support all the way. And through competitions and sponsorship, and that was, I feel very fortunate for the journey I had. At no point did anyone say to me, because you're a girl, you can't do it. And again, it's the only time it was ever brought to my attention that I was a girl was actually when I was visiting my home country of South Africa. So that's why I think for us all, and getting into the industry was the same thing. It was I was available, I could do the job. It didn't matter if I was a girl or a boy, I did the job. And then because I was a girl, I actually sometimes had better finesse and better technique, and I was able to approach things better. But I think it's actually been an advantage being a woman in the industry for me specifically. And it just at the end of the day, it's getting out there and putting yourself forward and doing what you love has got me to where I am 20 years later, kite surfing and working in the industry for pretty much 20 years. So if you've got a dream and you love doing it, just step out there and give it a go. Doesn't matter if you're young or old or age, gender, race, none of it matters as long as you've got the passion and drive. So, yeah. This is one of the capitals of kiteboarding in the world, and having a great women's community here, and every summer having all of our visitors come down is, yeah, we absolutely love having more and more women join us every year. So for our last segment, we have the lady behind the lens. We were going to have Crystal from I Kitesurf Mag here as well, but unfortunately she's very busy this time of the year. We know there's always stuff happening in the kiting industry, so juggling everything that needs doing is a challenge. But thank you very much, Miriam, for taking time today, getting all of the technical stuff organized.
Yeah, I tried.
You've done a great job. Thank you so much. Yeah. But this season has been a big one for you. Your name's really exploded on the scene. Wherever I go, I see images by Miriam. And how long have you been taking photos of kite surfing?
Of kite surfing since 2019. So
it's not too long. That's especially considering the period in between where we weren't able to travel, and in some places in the world we weren't even able to kite. And how did you get into it? Like getting into taking photos of kiters?
I actually got into taking photos of kiters through the Salty Sisters. And back then I was taking a video of their first camp. Yeah, it was actually a big life-changing experience because in previous years I made like a lot of negative experiences with, I would say, immature women, like just a lot of competition, and especially like women groups. I don't know, I had a couple like not so nice experiences, and I had a lot of respect to be in a group of females, and they had their first women's kite camp, so I was like, I don't know if this is the right setting I want to be in. But then I figured as a creative, I would just be the person capturing it, so I could distance myself, and in the end, it was a life-changing experience, because all the women involved were so mature and so like empowering, and it was such an incredible energy and vibe. And yeah, and then being in Brazil for 3 months, well, if you're up in the north, all you can do is take videos, photos, and kite. So that was the start from this madness.
Were you kiting at the time?
I got into kiting at the same time, yeah.
So you went from not being a kiter to being a kiting videographer, photographer, and right deep into the scene. So it really did change your life.
Yeah.
So female kiteboarding community, you look at it from a different perspective because you're always behind the lens. You've been looking at the athletes, you look at the different beaches that you've traveled to. In your experience, like what's the standout thing that differentiates female kiters from male kiters?
I have to say the females I've worked with in the industry and that was mentioned in previous conversations. There's a lot of group dynamic, and I really love the support females give each other. It's something that's very uplifting and also nice to see the dedication of the women in the sport. The ones are really involved, especially recently I've been capturing a lot of big air, and it's amazing to see the dedication of the females, how driven they are and how focused they are on the sport and their performance. And yeah, I mean, as a big air kite lady at a competition, you have your big vest on and stuff and your wetsuit. There's nothing about showing off in a bikini, it's all about performance. And yeah, that's been really really beautiful to see.
And it's been amazing. Miriam's captured the big air ladies really well this summer in multiple locations, and I know from speaking with the athletes, they've absolutely loved working with you because you're not afraid of going out there and getting the shot even when the waves are huge. Do you feel any fear or any intimidation about being a woman in a male-dominated environment in any way? Is there anything that you can share with anybody who's thinking about getting into that side of things on how to go about it and overcome any fear that they may feel?
Yeah, I really, I have to say, I've had a very, very positive experience overall throughout the years. The reason I'm where I'm at is because of women. I've had incredible women also coming from the surfing industry that have pushed my career in different directions. And yeah, all I can say is just go for it. Just do it. It doesn't matter if you're a guy or a girl. Just go and do your thing. Give it a shot. Give it a try. I never thought I would become an artist, actually. It was something that I feared of all the uncertainties and everything that comes with it. And yeah, if you don't try, you don't know. And I've learned that so many times in my life. And
that's brilliant. So is there any outstanding person that's helped you in your career to date that you feel has inspired you and helped you along the way to be where you are?
In terms of when it comes to the kiting industry, it's definitely Ines, from former fly surfer marketing manager. Yeah, there's something she saw in my work, and she was like, come join me on a shoot in Cape Town. And a couple weeks later, we were stuck in a 6-week shoot, which was absolute madness during COVID. But we survived, and yeah, that was a really big stepping stone for me into the industry.
It's women leading women, inviting women, including women. It's such a nice story. And athletes, is there any particular athlete that you've really enjoyed working with, and what about them shines through the lens for you that makes you go, wow?
I, again, have to say that quite recently working with the big air kite ladies was just so impressive to me. To see, I was working with them, I did a little group shoot and stuff, and to see them compete and to see some of those women, the height and extremeness of what they were doing was shots I've gotten of Aaron Hedlow and other guys, and I was just mind blown, because obviously the level, I don't think there is, with certain athletes, there's not a difference in the level, but to see something myself, I do more kite surfing than big air or anything, but it's just so impressive to see that and to capture that and to see the dedication. What was beautiful about the Big Air Kite League was that the women were competing in the same conditions as the men, which I've experienced in prior events, that there was always a different way approaching the women and in terms of condition, and it was just incredible to see at that event that so many people came to see the women, actually. Most people on the beach I talked to, they were there to see the women, because you see the guys doing these things all the time anyways. It's nothing big new or so exciting, but to see, I think it was almost 13 women competing was absolutely incredible.
And competing to the level of some of the guys, which was double loops and all the rest of it was incredible. Yeah. Now, for you, what's the most challenging shoot that you've done so far? The situation or the people that you work with? Like, you don't have to mention brands or names, but a scenario.
Well, in general, I think the extreme sports industry is a very challenging industry to work in. There's a lot of uncertainty, just the conditions themselves. They lead the way of a shoot and they make everything very hectic. And I have to say, a lot of shoots go very unplanned and very messy, and you think like, okay, this is my worst shoot yet, and then you get into the next shoot and you're like, oh, that was nothing before. So, yeah, it's just a part of the job, but it's just that what comes with those
That
ever-changing
keeps you
conditions, and yeah. It's a lot of adrenaline in every way possible.
So actually the challenges are what helps keep you coming back, because you can overcome those, hey?
Apparently, yeah.
Excellent. Are there any ladies here that have questions for Miriam from I mean, she's photography, videography, and I mean, the back end, the part, because she's not in the front there talking to people, but she's telling the story from the other side of the lens. So anyone have a question or anything like that you'd like to find out from her? Or about media in general? Let's hear Rosie.
Is there a difference between capturing men and women? That's a tricky one. It really depends on the person you work with.
So the individual again. Yeah.
It's hard to generalize something on like women or men. It really depends on the person you work with.
And a question from me. Oh, there's one there.
What inspires me most? I think as an artist, you have such a powerful tool to make a change. Like the visual world or even sound is something that like the brands and everyone kind of depends on, right? Like in the end, it's the image that impacts a culture or a society, and the beauty of imagery, I think, is that everyone understands it. Like, it's something you don't need to understand the language. It's something that speaks to you individually. And for me, that's just one of the most powerful tools there is out there, and I want to use that voice to make a change. I want to use that voice to capture what I want to see more out there, and that's what inspires me to use my tools to do that. Yeah.
And so where do you see women's kiteboarding in 5 years' time, 10 years' time? Or where would you like to see it?
I would like to see what really inspires me from the surfing industry is to see the culture that was involved or has evolved around it, and I definitely want to see more of that in the kiting industry. There's a lot of, in the surfing industry, there's a lot of films that reach way beyond the industry itself. Like, you see it at different festivals, like it has nothing, people come to see it that have nothing to do with the sport. And I definitely think there's a lot of potential there in the kiting industry, and to see more women being represented just the way they are and with their talents and not focused on any topics or issues. That's something, I think that there's room for growth.
Female athletes.
As female athletes.
Okay, so that's, and from your perspective, is there anything that as a community we can do to enable that to happen?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things. I mean, there's amazing organizations like the Salty Sisters or the Board Sport Chicks that have those women camps. I mean, there's Women's Downwinder. It's good to have an event to showcase the different women in the industry. I mean, there's so many women working behind the scenes that nobody knows of.
And we need people like you to tell the stories. So, I mean, that's like is there a way that we can encourage the brands or the athletes or even just the general riders to get involved? Do you think they can just contact a photographer or a videographer or a storyteller to tell their story? Or how do you recommend they can go about that?
Yeah, definitely just reach out, I think. And I think it's important to also make the brands aware that the representation, even maybe if the numbers still are fairly different, like there's a lot of argumentation that, you know, there's not as much product sold to women than to men, but if we don't make the change, there will never be a change happening. And I'm like, yeah, I'm happy to see, and I'm hoping to see more women on shoots, that it's not like 4 guys and 1 chick on a product shoot, you know, to see more of that representation.
So that's asking for it. This is a conversation we had when we met. You said, I recall that I asked, how did you end up where you are? And you said you asked. And you had a lot of supporting people around you, but the most important one was you asked people for their assistance or their advice. And I think as a community we should remember that things don't just fall out of the sky. If you want to make it happen, you've got to ask for it.
Yeah, definitely. Don't be afraid. Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to add from your side, looking at the back end of, like, you not in the forefront, the stories aren't being told about you, but there are lots of stories in the industry behind the scene. Is there any story that really resonates with you that should be told, that's behind the scene that people should know about?
I don't know about a particular story, but it's just incredible. Like, the power of the mind is so incredible, I think. And if you have a vision and a dream and you just keep going for it, even if you don't know what the timing of that dream or vision will be. But a year ago, I pay a lot of attention to who's behind the scenes, because there's obviously a lot of guys. And King of the Air was on, and I was seeing all this like media footage of like the behind the scenes of the King of the Air team, and it was only men. And I said to a friend of mine, I was like, wow, this is shocking. There's not one single woman in this whole room of the whole media crew and different outlets of media. And yeah, I obviously never thought that a year later I would be that woman in that room, but life wanted it that way, and it was absolutely incredible to be shooting this year for the King of the Air and to be, yeah, I guess that missing woman in that room. It was, yeah, it's just incredible, like what life has in stock for you, and you just keep on dreaming, keep on pushing, and everything's possible. Yeah.
That's very awesome, and that's that story behind the scenes. And we, most people who kite surf don't realize how many women are actually involved in the industry and behind the scene. Be it from, I mean, at Red Bull King of the Air, the company that does the media production for that's owned by a woman and a man, but the woman's been doing it since the beginning, for the last 10 years. She's been involved telling the story in the media room, so you never see her. Most of the brands have women either in the graphic teams, the marketing teams, the sales teams. Now there's lots of photographers. So on the back end, there's a lot of women working to make things happen. Most of the dealer meetings or events have female organizers, event organizers. So I think I think the ladies who are telling the story at the back need to be celebrated. They might not be in the public eye, but thank you. I mean, Ines and Julia and Joanna working at Woo, and the ladies from Blue Boards. What's your Big Blue Boards? They're female-owned brands out there. So Nat and Big Blue Boards, they've got a fantastic female-owned board brand. So keep an eye out there and support the ladies. And even if you don't see them in the forefront, know that they're there. They just tend to be working on it a little bit quieter than what most of the guys are. So could celebrate that, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And then from here, for the women in the community, where can they go to grow women's kiteboarding and grow support within kiteboarding? So we've mentioned doing a camp. Like any suggestions on how to go about growing the community in any way?
Yeah, I think social media is a great tool for it. Like we said, the women's camps, the downwinders. There's a WhatsApp group, I think, for Cape Town called Active Women Kiting or something like that.
So there's it. So have a clinic. Invite Angelie. So don't be afraid to ask a pro. Most of the pros are always open to it. Don't be afraid to ask a photographer along. Don't be scared to contact like Salty Sisters or Board Sport Girls or anybody like that. Reach out, join a community and get involved. And I'm sure, how's your clinic been the last couple of days, Angelie?
It's fine.
Lots of girls or?
Not that much, but enough.
Enough,
yeah.
So there we go. You've got to reach out and join Angelie so she's got more girls in the clinics for sure. And then the last one is there's Women's Kiteboarding Collective is American it's a global not-for-profit organization. So in probably about 15 years ago, Christine Boozer was world champion across all the disciplines, and she started the KB for Girls, which was a kiteboarding community doing clinics around the world, and that evolved into the Women's Kiteboarding Collective, led by Laurel Eastman, who's also in the industry. She's one of the first female kite school owners back in the early 2000s in Cabarete. And so there's these women all around, but the Women's Kiteboarding Collective, they try to inspire and motivate and get women involved. So you can always join that and reach out to them. It's a not-for-profit organization, and we can make sure that women's kiteboarding keeps growing. I think, anything else that you'd like to add, Miriam?
I think that's it.
That's it. Thank you, all of you, for joining us, and thank you, Miriam, for all the hard work at the back, and the Salty Sisters and Rosie. It's been awesome having you all around and having all the questions.
Big round of applause, please, for these awesome ladies. Okay, we did this all. This was way beyond our expectations. Thank you so much. You made this very special.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. I love supporting kiteboarding and women in kiteboarding. So thank you, ladies.
Thank you.